The evening air in the city center was thick with the chill of early fall, the kind that seeped into your bones if you sat still too long. I was Lillian Moore, 68, a black woman who'd spent 32 years as a night shift nurse in the public hospital downtown. My hands, calloused from years of holding IV lines and comforting the dying, clutched the strap of my worn handbag as I sat on the wooden bench in front of the old subway station. The bench was splintered, the paint peeling, but it was familiar, a spot where folks like me could wait without drawing too much attention. I wore my faded wool coat, shoulders a bit frayed from years of wear, but clean and pressed. No jewelry, no flash, just me waiting for my daughter. I wasn't waiting for the train. I was waiting for Derek, my girl, my pride. 6 years on the force patrolling the South Side. I never bragged about it. In this country, some truths you keep close, lest they make you a target. Derek knew that. She'd chosen the badge to change things from the inside, but I worried every night. Still, I sat straight-backed, my eyes on the passing crowd, people hurrying home with their heads down. A patrol car pulled up to the curb, its lights off but engine rumbling. A white officer stepped out, young, his shoulders stiff with that fresh academy confidence. His badge glinted under the street lamp as he approached, his partner staying by the car. "Ma'am, what are you doing here?" he asked, his tone not quite a question. I looked up, keeping my voice even, waiting for my daughter. He smiled, that familiar smile I'd seen 1,000 times, the one that said he already had his answer. "This isn't a place for loitering. You got ID?" Loitering, the word hung heavy. I shifted slightly, my handbag on my lap. "I'm not loitering, I'm waiting, and I don't see why I need to show ID for sitting on a public bench." His eyes narrowed, scanning my coat, my face, my hands. "We get reports of suspicious activity around here. People not belonging. You understand?" Suspicious, not belonging. The words were code. Ones I'd heard since I was a girl in the South, then in the hospital where I'd saved lives, but still got questioned in the halls. "I belong here as much as anyone," I said calmly. "My daughter's picking me up. She's running late." He chuckled low. "Daughter, huh? What'd she do?" I paused. The truth was my shield, but it could also be a weapon. "She's an officer like you." His laugh was sharper now. "Sure. And I'm the chief. Let's see some ID, ma'am. Make this easy." I reached into my bag slowly, pulling out my wallet. He watched every move, his hand near his belt. I handed him my driver's license, my nurse ID from the hospital. He glanced at them, then back at me. "These could be fake. This area's changed. Folks like the Bradshaws used to own half the block. White family. You sure you're not mistaken?" The name Bradshaw stirred something old owners of properties around here, but this was public space. "I'm sure," I said, my voice steady. "Now, if you're done, I'd like to wait in peace." He pocketed my ID, radioing his partner, "Need backup, possible non-cooperation." The second car arrived minutes later, lights flashing now, drawing eyes from passersby. The partner joined him, and they flanked me. "We're going to need to check your bag," the first officer said, his tone final. "My bag has medicine, a handkerchief, and food for my daughter," I said, not moving. "No reason to search it." He reached for it anyway. I held firm, but he tugged, his grip tight. The strap slipped and the bag fell, contents spilling, my pills, a wrap sandwich, a photo of Derek in uniform tumbling out. He picked up the photo, his eyes widening slightly. "This your daughter?" "Yes," I said, bending to gather my things, my back aching from the strain. He handed it back, but his skepticism lingered. "We'll run a check. Sit tight." I sat, the bench hard under me, the lights pulsing red and blue across my face. Neighbors watched from windows, but no one came out. The humiliation burned, not the search, but the assumption, the way my color and age had made me suspicious from the start. I'd seen it in the hospital, patients doubting my care because of my skin. I'd felt it as a girl, walking home from school, and now, on a public bench, waiting for my own child. The officers whispered, radios crackling. I kept my head high, my hands clasped. Anger simmered, but I held it. Rage wouldn't help, patience would. I'd lived long enough to know truth came slow, but it came. As the minutes ticked, I thought of Derek, her badge, a double-edged sword. "Mom, you scared for me being a cop?" she'd asked once. "I'm scared you'll have to choose between your brothers and blue in your blood," I'd replied. The first officer turned back. "Checks out clean, but next time don't loiter." "Waiting isn't loitering," I said quietly. He shrugged, returning my ID. The cars pulled away, lights off, as if nothing had happened. The street quieted, curtains closing. I sat there, my bag repacked, the photo of Derek clutched in my hand. The exhaustion wasn't from the weight, it was from the weight of being seen as less always. But I didn't move. Not yet. Because I knew the storm was coming and my silence was its herald. The officer's voice cut through the chill like a blade. "Stand up, ma'am," slowly. I did as he said, rising from the bench with deliberate care, my handbag still clutched in my lap. At 68, my joints protested the movement, but I didn't show it. No argument, no tremor. It was a habit forged from a life of endurance, 32 years as a night shift nurse, where rushing could mean mistakes and showing weakness invited doubt. The street lamp cast long shadows, the patrol lights pulsing red and blue across my coat. Neighbors' curtains twitched, faces peering from windows, but no one stepped out. They never did. Backup arrived moments later, another cruiser pulling up with a squeal of tires, its lights flashing, turning the quiet street into a spectacle. The partner joined Vance, their boots heavy on the pavement. The air felt thicker, the chill deeper. I stood straight, my back aching from the bench, but my gaze level. "Who are you waiting for?" Vance asked again, his tone sharper. "My daughter," I repeated, my voice steady as before. "Daughter doing what?" The partner chimed in, his eyes scanning me like I was a puzzle with missing pieces. I paused, weighing the words. "She's an officer, like you." Vance chuckled, low and skeptical. "Sure, and what's in the bag?" "Medicine, a handkerchief, and food for my daughter," I said, not moving to open it. "We'll need to check that," Vance said, his hand extended. I held his gaze for a moment, then handed it over. He unzipped it roughly, rummaging through the bottle of blood pressure pills, the folded handkerchief, the wrapped sandwich I'd packed for Derek's shift. His face tightened as he found nothing suspicious, his eyes flashing disappointment. He zipped it back, thrusting it at me. "Nothing here, but that doesn't mean you're clear." I took the bag, my hand steady, but inside the old wound stirred. I remembered the hospital nights, the times patients yelled at me, refusing my care because of my skin. "Get a real nurse," they'd say, as if my 32 years meant nothing. I'd saved lives, held hands through last breaths, but to some, I was always less. Black patients fared worse, 2 longer waits, rougher treatment, as if their pain was less real. I'd seen it, felt it, but kept going, because quitting wasn't an option. Now, on this bench, waiting for my own child, I was reduced to a suspect again, and the exhaustion wasn't new. It was bone deep, a sadness for a world that hadn't changed. Vance radioed something low, then turned back. "We'll take you to the station to sort this out." "For what?" I asked, my voice calm. "Sitting on a bench?" "Non-cooperation," he said. "Make it easy, ma'am. No cuffs if you come quietly." No cuffs. As if that was mercy. The humiliation burned not the search, not the questions, but the ease with which they dismissed me. I thought of my childhood, walking home from school, white kids yelling names, police cars slowing to watch, of the hospital where I'd stitched wounds but couldn't mend the systems, of Derek, my girl, who chose the badge to change from within. "Mom, are you scared for me being a cop?" she'd asked. "I'm scared you'll have to choose between your brothers in blue and your blood," I'd replied. I followed them to the car, sitting in the back, the divider a barrier between us. The city lights streaked past as we drove, and the skyline a blur of glass and steel. I kept my head high, my hands clasped in my lap. Anger simmered, but I held it. Rage wouldn't help. Patience would. I'd lived long enough to know truth came slow. But it came. As the station loomed ahead, I closed my eyes, whispering a silent prayer for Derek. The storm was here, and my silence was its eye calm, waiting for the moment it would break. The police station room was a box of faded beige walls and scuffed linoleum, the kind of place that smelled of old coffee and disinfectant. They led me in without a word, gesturing to a metal chair bolted to the floor. No water, no explanation, no apology. The door clicked shut behind them, leaving me alone with the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant murmur of radios. I sat straight, my handbag on my lap, hands clasped over the strap. At 68, I'd learned patience the hard way, 32 years on, night shifts as a nurse, waiting for doctors who came late, for patients who clung to life through the dark hours. Fear, I left that behind long ago. This was just another weight in a world that had taught me to endure. I closed my eyes, the chair hard against my back, and let the memories come. Childhood in the South, where poverty wrapped tight as my mother's hugs. We lived in a shotgun house, Daddy working double shifts at the mill, Mama cleaning homes for white families who never looked her in the eye. "Keep your head down, Lillian," she'd say. "They see us, but they don't see us." I saw it then, the way we were invisible until we were inconvenient. School buses that passed us by, stores where clerks followed us aisle by aisle. I vowed to be different, to stand tall. Nursing school was my escape, but even there, professors doubted my hands, patients questioned my care. "You sure you know what you're doing?" they'd ask, as if my black skin erased my training. The hospital years blurred into one long night, saving lives, holding hands through final breaths, cleaning up after the chaos. Black patients waited longer, got rougher treatment as if their pain was less real. I'd stitch wounds, administer meds, comfort families, but to some doctors I was just the nurse, no name, no respect. I'd seen it all: addicts, victims of violence, mothers like me losing children to the streets. Derek was my light, my only child after a marriage that ended in silence. She was smart, fierce, but when she chose the badge, my heart sank. "Mom, are you scared for me being a cop?" she'd asked. "I'm scared you'll have to choose between your brothers in blue and your blood," I'd replied. In this room, that fear twisted deep. Derek had joined to change things from within, But this system, it chewed up good intentions. The officers who'd brought me in whispered outside the door, their voices low but audible. "Old lady's got attitude," one said. "Probably loitering for real." Laughter muffled. I didn't flinch. I'd heard worse. But sadness crept in for Derek, who might hear the same whispers about her own mother. For myself, still proving I belonged after a lifetime of service. I jiangxie inside. Anger bubbled at the injustice, the way my color and age had made me suspicious from the start. Sadness for a world that hadn't changed, where a black woman on a bench was a threat. Was my silence strength or submission? I'd chosen silence in the hospital, swallowing insults to keep my job, to help those who needed me. But now, in this room, it felt like armor. Time ticked slow, the clock on the wall mocking. I kept my back straight, my head high. Bowing wasn't in me, not after all I'd survived. The door finally opened, footsteps familiar in their rhythm, and a voice tense but controlled. "Excuse me, Mrs. Lillian." I turned. Derek stood there, her uniform sharp, her face tight with a mix of duty and emotion. The room went silent, the officers behind her frozen. I looked at my daughter, no smile, no tears. "I told you not to be late," I said quietly. The storm had arrived. The door to the holding room creaked open, the sound sharp in the stale air. I looked up from my clasped hands, my back still straight against the metal chair. Derek stood in the doorway, her uniform crisp under the fluorescent lights, her face a mask of controlled tension, her eyes so like mine, dark, resolute, widened slightly as they met my gaze. "Excuse me, Mrs. Lillian," she said, her voice professional but laced with something deeper, a waver between duty and kinship. The room fell silent, the air thick. Vance, the young white officer who'd brought me in, stood frozen behind her, his face draining of color. His partner shifted uncomfortably by the desk, the radio static, the only sound breaking the stillness. I held her gaze, no smile, no tears, just the quiet recognition of a mother seeing her child in a storm she knew all too well. "Derek?" I said softly. She stepped forward, her boots echoing. "What's going on here?" she asked, turning to Vance, her tone sharp now, the officer emerging. Vance stammered, his confidence crumbling. We got a call about suspicious activity at the subway bench. She was uncooperative, so we brought her in to verify." "Verify what?" Derek demanded, her eyes narrowing. "ID, residency, or just because she was sitting there?" Vance glanced at his notes, his hands fumbling. "She said she was waiting for her daughter. We checked the bag. Nothing suspicious, but protocol." Derek's face hardened. "She's my mother," she snapped, her voice echoing off the walls. The partner gasped, Vance's mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "You brought my mother in for sitting on a bench? Show me the report now." Vance handed over the clipboard and his fingers trembling. Derek scanned it, her jaw tight. "No mention of the call details, no camera check from the station. You just assumed." "We followed procedure," Vance said, his voice weak. "She didn't cooperate fully." Derek slammed the clipboard down. "Cooperate? She's 68 waiting for me after a shift. You searched her bag, treated her like a suspect. Pull the camera footage from the bench. Let's see this suspicious activity." The partner hurried to the computer, pulling up the feed. The screen showed me sitting quietly, handbag on lap. No movement, but the occasional glance at my watch. No loitering, no threat. Derek turned to Vance, her eyes blazing. "This is what you call suspicious? A black woman on a bench?" Vance bowed his head, his face red. I'm sorry, ma'am. It was a mistake." "Mistake?" Derek echoed. "Apologies don't erase bias. They don't fix the system that lets this happen every day." I watched, my heart heavy. Derek, my girl, standing tall in her uniform, defending me, but at what cost? I remembered her as a child, asking why people stared at us in stores. "They're scared of what they don't know," I'd said. When she chose the badge, I'd worried. "You sure, baby? It's a tough road." "I want to change it, Mom," she'd replied, from the inside. Now here she was, choosing between her brothers in blue and her blood. Sadness washed over me, not for myself, but for her, caught in the middle of a world that demanded loyalty at the expense of truth. The chief arrived then, summoned by the commotion. He reviewed the footage, his face grim. "Officer Vance, you're on administrative leave pending review. This is unacceptable." Vance nodded, defeated, muttering another apology as he left the room. The partner followed, the door closing behind them. Derek turned to me, her shoulders slumping. "Mom, I'm so sorry." I stood, my legs steady, and pulled her into a hug. "You did right, baby, you always do." But inside, the conflict raged. I was proud, my girl, fighting for what was just, but sad knowing the system she joined hadn't changed, that she'd have to keep choosing sides. As we walked out, the dawn breaking gray over the city, I wondered if my silence all these years had been strength or surrender. The world still saw us as less, but Derek's stand gave me hope. Yet I knew it wasn't over. Not for us. The first light of dawn crept over the city as I stepped out of the police station, the door clicking shut behind me with a finality that echoed in the quiet street. The air was cool, the kind that bit at your skin after a long night, but I felt it less than the weight of what had just transpired. Derek walked beside me, her uniform still crisp despite the hours, her face a mask of controlled emotion. We didn't speak at first. The silence between us was thick, filled with the unspoken tension of what she'd just confronted. Her colleagues, her brothers in blue, had crossed a line, and she'd stood on my side of it. At 68, I'd seen enough to know that choice wasn't easy. The walk to the old subway station was short. The sidewalks cracked and familiar under my feet. We stopped at the bench where it all began, the wooden slats cold and damp from the night air. I sat down slowly, my handbag on my lap, hands clasped over the strap. Derek stood, her shadow long in the early light, her eyes on me. "Mom," she said finally, her voice low, breaking the quiet. "I'm so sorry." I looked up at her. My girl, tall and strong in her uniform, her face etched with the same determination I'd instilled in her. "Don't be," I said softly. "You did what you had to." She sat beside me, her hands fidgeting with her belt. "When they called me, and I couldn't believe it. You, of all people." I placed my hand on hers, stopping the fidget. Her skin was warm against my cool fingers, a reminder of the life I'd given her. "Do you regret it? The badge, the job?" She shook her head, her eyes meeting mine, sad but resolute. "No, but it hurts, Mom, seeing you go through this again." I joined to change it, but it's still the same. I squeezed her hand gently, the touch a bridge between us. "I'm not sad, baby. I'm just hoping for the day when Black women don't need their children in power to sit peacefully on a bench, when we can just be without proving or fighting." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "I hope so, too. I'll keep trying for us." The rumble of an approaching train filled the air, its lights cutting through the dawn haze. The ground vibrated slightly as it passed, the sound a low thunder that shook loose something inside me. I stood, my back straight, the bench creaking under the shift. Derek rose with me, her arm linking mine. We walked away together, the station fading behind us, the city awakening with the soft hum of morning traffic. I didn't know what the future held, whether Derek would change the system from within, or if she'd face more nights like this. Whether I'd continue my quiet life of healing others, or if this incident would pull me into the light. But I knew one thing. Truth always came, slow as a train on old tracks, but inevitable. At 68, I'd learned that silence wasn't weakness. It was the strength of Black women who'd endured lifetimes of doubt, of being seen as less. When we stood, we didn't need to shout to be heard. Our presence, our endurance spoke volumes. The world might not change overnight, but women like me were its foundation, the quiet force that shifted mountains one patient step at a time. As the wind blew gently, carrying the scent of fresh rain from the night before, I glanced at Derek. She smiled faintly, her hand still in mine. We didn't need more words. The path ahead was uncertain, but we walked it together, and that was enough.